We live in a time where everything seems within reach. With just a touch, we summon entertainment, information, and human connection. It feels as though the world has never been closer, nor knowledge more abundant. Yet, amidst this sea of possibilities, something essential is quietly slipping away. A creeping numbness is spreading, leaving millions of people feeling disconnected, unmotivated, and inexplicably weary. Society is quick to label this as laziness, lack of willpower, or even moral failure. But what if this diagnosis is wrong? What if our apparent lack of motivation is not a sign of weakness, but a symptom of something much deeper? A soul suffocated by relentless overstimulation. This perspective is not new. It resonates with modern thinkers, but also finds echoes in ancient philosophy and the life of Viktor Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor. Frankl, who endured the unbearable horrors of Nazi concentration camps, found within himself a power that did not come from comfort, nor from the hope of being rescued. It came from meaning. For Frankl, humans are not ultimately driven by pleasure or the avoidance of pain, but by the search for meaning. Even in the darkest and most brutal circumstances, those who survived were not necessarily the strongest. They were those who still had a reason to live. This search for meaning is what breathes life into us, even when everything else is stripped away. What happens then? When a society trades the search for meaning for the endless pursuit of pleasure, distraction, and surface-level achievements? What happens to the human spirit when every pause is filled, when every silence is crushed by noise, when every moment of discomfort is quickly numbed by the next quick hit of digital entertainment? Maybe you are not lazy. Maybe you are simply exhausted. Exhausted from chasing goals that were never yours. Exhausted from consuming content that leaves you emptier. Exhausted from living in a storm of constant distraction. What if your so-called lack of motivation is not a defect? What if it is a desperate signal from your soul, a final cry warning you that something essential has been lost amidst the chaos? This is what we will explore together. We will uncover how hyperstimulation is quietly eroding your ability to find meaning, how our fear of silence is pulling us further from our true selves, and how the wisdom of a man who survived the depths of human cruelty can help us rediscover purpose in the midst of our technological and existential storm. If you have ever felt stuck, tired, or unable to move forward, even when you know exactly what you need to do, this message is for you. Maybe your spirit is not broken. Maybe it is just trying to bring you back home. The human brain was never designed to endure this ceaseless flood of stimulation. Across thousands of years, we evolved in harmony with nature's rhythms, times of work, times of rest, moments of action balanced by periods of reflection and stillness. But something has drastically changed. In this modern age, silence has become the enemy. Stillness has been labeled a waste of time. We live in a world where every second is invaded by flashing lights, buzzing notifications, scrolling feeds, and endless streams of shallow information. Even the smallest pause must now be filled by a screen, by sound, by something. Technology was once a tool meant to expand human potential. But now, it often serves as a mask, a numbing agent that shields us from ourselves. We scroll endlessly, not because we are truly interested in what we see, but because we can no longer tolerate silence. We binge videos, we chase updates, not because they enrich us, but because they allow us to escape from something much scarier: our own thoughts. The price of this is devastating. The dopamine that once rewarded meaningful progress is now constantly triggered by tiny, meaningless bursts of digital pleasure. Our minds, addicted to novelty and speed, slowly lose the ability to desire what is profound. What once brought us joy, a deep conversation, a creative endeavor, a walk through nature, now feels slow, even boring. The tragedy is not just that. We are distracted. It is that we are being conditioned to stop longing for what is real. And so, the uncomfortable question arises. If we are so obsessed with avoiding boredom, what are we really running from? Because it is within those moments of stillness, within the quiet, that life's most important questions rise to the surface. Viktor Frankl warned us, modern man, drowning in meaningless tasks and trivial distractions, is losing the courage to reflect, losing the space to make conscious choices, and losing the freedom to create his own meaning. And this, more than anything, is what leaves us feeling hollow. Perhaps you already feel this. Perhaps part of you knows that your exhaustion is not simply physical, it is the exhaustion of living disconnected from your deepest self. It is not that you have no strength. It is that you are tired of chasing goals that hold no meaning for. You doubt the so-called lack of motivation is often the soul's rebellion. It is the quiet uprising of your spirit, demanding that you stop playing roles that no longer fit, that you stop running from your own truth. Before we continue, if this message is speaking to you, I gently invite you to subscribe to this channel. It's a small step that will keep us connected on this journey. I am grateful to have you here. In the next part, we will explore what happens to a mind that never rests, a mind bombarded by distractions, a mind that loses its ability to reflect, to connect, to find purpose. What happens when silence disappears? What happens when the sacred space where we hear our own voice is lost? Stay with me. The path ahead may be uncomfortable, but it can lead you back to what truly matters. What happens to a mind that is never allowed to rest? A mind that is always busy, always reacting, always connected, but never truly present? The answer is simple and devastating. Such a mind begins to fracture. It loses its depth. It loses its clarity. It begins to consume, but it no longer contemplates. It reacts, but it no longer truly thinks. Reflection is more than mere thought. It is stepping back. It is creating space to observe, to understand, to feel, to reconnect with one's own values. Reflection is where our true identity takes shape. It is where we process our experiences, where we discover what truly matters, where we begin to live in alignment with who we really are. But when every waking moment is consumed by stimulation, when every silence is instantly filled, the sacred space for reflection is eroded. In its place, we are left with a frantic, anxious mind that cannot sustain a deep line of thinking, let alone a true search for meaning. The overstimulated mind is not seeking clarity, it is seeking relief. And this is where the real danger begins. A mind that chases only relief will cling to anything that offers a quick escape. Social media, binge watching, emotional eating, pornography, endless shopping, relentless work, anything that can momentarily numb the discomfort. Even if it slowly destroys us. This is the trap. Excessive stimulation erodes deep thinking. And without deep thinking, we become trapped in the same shallow patterns, the same empty routines, day after day. Worse, we begin to lose touch with ourselves. Without silence, without moments of introspection, we stop recognizing our own feelings. We stop knowing what we truly want. We lose the ability to hear what moves us at the core. We start living according to what is advertised to us, what is suggested to us, what is imposed upon us, not according to what emerges from within. The Danish philosopher Kierkegaard once said that the greatest despair is to choose to be someone other than yourself. But how can we ever truly choose ourselves if we never pause long enough to find out who we are? A mind that does not reflect becomes alienated from its own essence. And it is this alienation that feeds what we call demotivation. Because when we are disconnected from our real desires, our authentic values, our true goals, every action begins to feel forced. Every step feels empty. The spark is missing. The energy is gone. Motivation cannot exist where the soul is absent. Real motivation does not come from discipline alone. It is born from connection, and connection requires silence. It requires space. It requires moments of honest pause. Viktor Frankl captured this with incredible precision. He said that between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies our power to choose. In that choice lies our growth. And in that growth lies our freedom. But what happens when that space is destroyed? When there is no longer a gap between stimulus and response? When there is no longer a choice-only automatic reaction? This is what we are living now. Our minds are so overloaded, so filled with external impulses, that we have lost the capacity to choose with intention. We scroll, we click, we consume. We perform, but we do not truly choose. And this leads to a cruel misunderstanding. Society often tells us that demotivation is a personal flaw, that if you feel unmotivated, something must be wrong with you. But what if it's the opposite? What if demotivation is not a weakness, but a protest? What if it's the soul's way of telling you, stop running in circles. Stop chasing things that do not nourish you. Stop living a life that does not belong to you. Demotivation is often the scream of a psyche that has been forced to pursue hollow goals, to chase imposed expectations, to keep moving without ever asking, does this matter to me? Does this reflect who I truly am? Perhaps you are not unmotivated. Perhaps you are simply exhausted. Exhausted from playing a role that has nothing to do with your essence. Imagine a plant forced to grow in toxic soil, under artificial lights, without ever seeing the sun. It may grow, but it will be pale, fragile, disconnected from its natural rhythm. This is what happens to the modern mind. Constantly exposed to shallow stimulation, burdened by superficial demands, it never has time to grow roots, to reconnect with its own being. When you feel unmotivated in this context, your body is saying, we need to stop. Your soul is saying, we need to go home. Frankl warned us, when a person cannot find meaning, they turn to pleasure. But pleasure is not fulfillment. And when the emptiness inevitably returns, as it always does, we realize that the problem was never a lack of movement, but a lack of direction. What we need is not more productivity. What we need is reconnectation. Viktor Frankl's story is a lighthouse in this storm. He survived unimaginable horrors, yet his message was not one of bitterness. It was one of responsibility and hope. He taught that true motivation does not come from comfort, it comes from purpose. And purpose is not optional. It is a necessity for the human spirit. When you are disconnected from your purpose, no amount of discipline will bring lasting energy. When you are aligned with what truly moves you, you don't need to force yourself to act. You act because you are alive again. Frankl challenged us to ask better questions. Not how can I be more productive, but what is worth living for? Not how can I have more energy, but what is worth giving my energy to? Meaning does not need to be something grand. It can be a child, a craft, a simple duty, a personal mission, a private value. What matters is that it is true. What matters is that it comes from you, not from what the world expects you to chase. But how do we find this meaning in a life consumed by noise? How do we make room for this reconnection in a world that never stops? In the next part, we will explore this sacred territory, the power of silence, pause, and discomfort as the hidden gateways to a life of genuine purpose and presence. If what you are hearing resonates with you, I invite you to continue this journey with me. You can subscribe to this channel. It is a quiet but intentional step that will help us stay connected. Thank you for choosing to walk this path. We are only beginning. In a world where silence is almost treated as a threat, speaking about its power seems like a forgotten language. Silence confronts us. It strips away the distractions we hide behind. It forces us to hear what we've been avoiding, the unresolved thoughts, the lingering pain, the uncomfortable questions we've pushed aside. And yet, it is precisely in this territory, uncomfortable, raw, disconcerting, that the road back to meaning quietly waits for us. The modern mind has been conditioned to run from emptiness. Waiting feels unbearable. Being alone feels frightening. Simply being with no phone, no task, no screen feels almost unnatural. But this emptiness is not a mistake. It is an invitation. It is a door waiting to be opened, because it is in the stillness and the absence of noise that we can finally hear what we were always meant to hear, the quiet voice of our own consciousness. When the noise stops, the essential begins to surface. The values you forgot, the desires you buried, the questions you never dared to ask. This is the forgotten art of listening, not listening to others, but listening to yourself. Viktor Frankl believed that life constantly asks questions of us. It is not about what we want from life. It is about what life is asking from us. But to answer, we must first learn to hear. And hearing, in a world of overwhelming stimuli, requires a deliberate pause. This is why silence feels so uncomfortable at first. It breaks the spell. It exposes us. It strips away the masks we've worn to survive the noise. But this discomfort is not your enemy. It is your starting point. It is a signal that you are stepping out of the automatic, that you are moving against the current of shallow living. It is the first moment of clarity. Before true motivation can emerge, you must create silence. Before aligned action can arise, you must allow yourself to listen deeply and honestly. It is in silence that you will begin to feel what you've been avoiding. Yes, silence will confront you with your insecurities, your doubts, your regrets, but it will also uncover forgotten truths. It will reveal what truly matters to you. It will bring to light the directions you've neglected, the dreams you've buried, the path you were always meant to walk. The pain you feel in the absence of stimulation is not a punishment. It is the moment your soul starts to breathe again. It is the beginning of reintegration. It is where the fractured pieces of yourself slowly start to come back together. Viktor Frankl wrote, "Each person has a unique mission, a singular path that cannot be repeated, a meaning that cannot be replaced. But how can you hear this calling if you never stop? How can you find your path if you never pause long enough to listen for it?" This is where you must begin, not with more tasks, more goals, more noise, but with space, with silence, with the courage to turn off the phone, to step away from what is urgent, to reject what is not essential. It may feel strange at first. You may feel restless. You may feel exposed. But these are good signs. They mean you are no longer numbing yourself. You are waking up. In a society that equates busyness with worth, choosing silence is an act of rebellion. Choosing to listen to yourself is a return to your own authority. It is a sacred step toward reclaiming your life. You don't need to know all the answers right now. You only need to create the space where the answers can begin to emerge. When you stop filling every gap with distraction, you create a sacred room where purpose can begin to breathe. It is in this quiet room that your real motivation will slowly, patiently start to rise. Not the motivation to meet external expectations, not the energy to chase shallow rewards, but the gentle, steady flame that moves you toward what matters to you. Before we close this part, ask yourself, when was the last time you sat in complete silence, not waiting for anything, not distracting yourself, just being present with your own breath, your own thoughts, your own life? Maybe that's where your answer is. Maybe that's where you'll find what you've been searching for. If this message is bringing something alive in you, I encourage you to quietly subscribe to this channel. It's not about growing numbers, it's about staying connected in This journey of rediscovering purpose in a world that forgot how to pause. In the next and final part, we will dive into the most crucial step. How do we transform silence into meaningful action? How do we break free from apathy, not by chasing external stimulation, but by living in alignment with an authentic internal purpose? Stay with me. You've come this far. The next step could change everything. There comes a moment when you can no longer live on autopilot. When the noise you have relied on to distract yourself no longer suffices. When scrolling, watching, and doing fail to fill the growing emptiness inside. This is the moment of rupture. The moment you can no longer ignore the silent call of your soul. It is also the moment of beginning. True motivation is not loud. It does not come with easy promises or magic formulas. It does not demand heroism or grand gestures. It is not about pleasing others or meeting external expectations. True motivation arises from an encounter, a meeting with your own deepest self. Your core values, your forgotten dreams, your rawest truth. It is a quiet but relentless force. A spark that ignites the way you act in the world. And it starts simply with turning off the noise. With saying no to what no longer serves you. With the courageous act of stepping away from the chaos to walk inward. Because it is within this internal space, free from distraction, that purpose begins to take shape. It is here that you begin to act, not out of obligation, but out of meaning. Not from impulse, but from choice. Not to escape, but to express who you truly are. Demotivation is not a failure. It is an invitation, a call to stop living on the surface and dive deeply into what is real. A sign that it is time to reconnect, to create silence, to regain presence, to act with intention. Viktor Frankl, who survived the hell of concentration camps, left us a powerful truth. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. That freedom remains yours today. Even now, you have the power to interrupt the cycle of superficiality and begin a new narrative. One where you are not at the mercy of endless stimuli, but guided by purpose. So I ask you now, what noise will you silence to hear your own voice? What distractions will you let go of to reclaim your power? What old stories, habits, or expectations will you leave behind? This is your moment to decide. To step into the space between stimulus and response, to claim your freedom, to choose your path. If this message resonates with you, please share in the comments what you will leave behind starting today. Let your words be a testimony of your intention to live with purpose. And if you found value here, I invite you to subscribe to the channel, to like this video, and to join this community committed to deep reflection and authentic living. Remember, the path to a meaningful life is not found in the noise, but in the silence between. It begins with the courage to stop, listen, and choose. Thank you for walking this journey with me. The next video is ready and waiting. It may be exactly what you need right now. Until then, be well, be present, be purposeful,